to Julius. Puts up a three. And goal!
Bearcat Blitz, a winning weekend for Cincinnati basketball as they keep everybody intrigued. They keep the season just still on life support with a victory over TCU 75-63. I'm Russ Eltman, your host, joined by my co-host Neil Meyer of rival Cincinnati site, thefrontofficenews.com. And, of course, you can catch me at Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. Fun show coming your way on this Monday to start the week. 75-63 win for Cincinnati. They get it done without Simas Lukosius for the second straight game. They're 1-1 without him now this season, and the offense looked a lot better without Simas. And they kind of did exactly what I projected them to do in terms of shutting down the TCU offense, shutting down their ability to get to the free throw line, which they have done to basically every team in this conference slate except for Iowa State a couple weeks ago. And they have a chance to continue keeping their season alive and that NCAA tournament flicker of candlelight lit if they can get the job done on Tuesday against Baylor. Another quad one opportunity, which will be a quad one game for basically 8 hours if they win the ball game, because Baylor is right on that 30th mark. And you got to guess that they will be knocked down outside of the quad one opportunity in terms of home opponents, 1-30 nationally, if they do get the job done against Baylor on Tuesday night. But it doesn't matter. Just got to keep winning if you're Cincinnati. Got to keep stacking W's. And we will discuss all that coming up on the show. But first, want to tell you about BetOnline. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your number one game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. We'll get to a quick break right now, get the messages in from our sponsors, and then we will dive into the recap of TCU and more with a look at Baylor coming up on this Bearcat Blitz presented by BetOnline. Neil, a wire-to-wire win for Cincinnati basketball in this game against TCU. I believe it's their first wire-to-wire victory of Big 12 play. It's if not their first, it's been a rare occurrence this season as Cincinnati gets out to a 13-0 lead. That was their biggest margin of the whole entire game. They kept TCU at bay from there and never gave up the lead. Shot terribly from outside, 4 of 20 once again, just 11 three-pointers made in the last two games without Simas Lukosius, but the ball pinged around much better. Jizzle James was much more efficient in terms of getting to the rack. I believe he went either 3 of 4 or 4 of 4 at the rim, which is what we've been harping on him to do so much more of over the past couple of weeks. Had arguably his best finish as a Bearcat on a nasty reverse layup under the basket that he got for an and one in that game. Goes 7 of 16, leads all scorers with 18 points. There was 4 Bearcats that scored in double figures, including a 100% field goal mark from Josh Reed. Probably his best game as a Bearcat. Once again, he has now had his highest minute totals at UC, all 4 of the highest minute totals coming in the last few weeks. 27 minutes for Reed. He played stout defense, grabbed a couple of rebounds, hit his one field goal, his one 3-point field goal, and went 2 of 2 at the free throw line. Cincinnati, of course, after going 2 of 7 in a 3-point loss against West Virginia on the road with the free throw line, goes 15 of 17 here. They make their freebies, and they keep TCU from doing what many expected TCU to have to do to get a win here. Only 4 free throw attempts for the Horned Frogs. They shot just 6 of 23 from outside. Neil, this was some of the best defense I've seen UC play man-to-man in a few weeks. They stayed in front of their man. They stayed stout. Dylan Mitchell was electric in terms of the defensive end. He was electric on offense as well to notch his second double-double of the conference slate, 12 points and 13 rebounds on 4 of 5 shooting, and he hit all 4 of his free throws. If they can get this kind of Dylan Mitchell the rest of the way, this kind of Josh Reed the rest of the way, and this kind of Jizzle James the rest of the way, Neil, UC may just pull an Undertaker and get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from Saturday's game versus TCU. Obviously, still without Simas Lukosius, which Wes Miller gave a brief update, said he went through a layup drill on Friday, but everything was still with his off-ball hand, so left hand.
I would be pretty surprised if he plays on Tuesday. We'll see.
Yeah, still kind of said he still couldn't lift that shoulder above his head, so don't know if we'll see him out there on Tuesday. But overall, Russ, as you mentioned, Cincinnati can get this kind of performance from guys like Josh Reed, who was electric on Saturday, 5 of 5 in 27 minutes. I thought that was his best game of his career. But on top of it, if you can get that kind of performance from Dylan Mitchell, I thought he made an impact on both ends of the floor. 12 points, 13 rebounds. That's the kind of expectation you want from a guy like Dylan Mitchell, and that they were hoping to get this whole season in terms of the rebounding numbers. But Russ, that's the biggest takeaway for me here. Obviously, the offense got going with 4 players in double figures, but you win the rebounding margin. That's the huge thing for Cincinnati, 39-33. In that aspect, you really only keep Ernst Uda, just 4 points and 6 rebounds. That was my player to watch, and I was kind of looking for TCU to kind of establish the ball in the paint and go from that aspect. But Cincinnati, 4 players in double figures, that's a huge sign, especially with Simas Lukosius out. We were going to see who was going to be that guy to step up. And just like the last 2.5, 3 weeks, Russ, it's been Josh Reed. And he's made a significant impact. And it's safe to say, if Simas Lukosius is unable to go on Tuesday, there's no way that you can take Josh Reed out of the starting lineup. And you have to give him that 25 to 27 minutes per game, even more with the way he's been playing as of lately. He's been the spark the Bearcats have needed. But on top of it, Russ, the season now still sits afloat, and you now head into a must-win game with a potential quad 2 opportunity on Tuesday night versus a very struggling Baylor team, which, for those who remember the first matchup, was not so pretty for the Bearcats.
68-48 destruction by BJ Edgecombe and the Baylor Bears on January 7th. That was a Baylor Bears team, though, that had their rim protector in it's so hard for me to say his name, Josh Ojiawana. Yeah, he has not played since early February, and they have been hemorrhaging points at the rim. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But speaking of the rim, Jizzle James Neal now up to 67.7% shooting on 42 of 62 attempts at the rim this season. He's 4 for 4 on his dunk attempts. That's the answer. That is the path to offensive efficiency from this backcourt, is Jizzle James continuing to get aggressive. They need him to continue to keep being aggressive. They need him to get to the free throw line even more than he has even against TCU. When you look at him getting 3 free throws, made all 3 of them. He's a guy that I could see, maybe not this year, but next year. There's no reason why at his size, 6'3", a little over 200 pounds, that he can't get to that physicality mark of 5, 6, 7 free throw attempts per game and really up his efficiency in that sense. And what better time than now to start trying to do it and continuing to do that. A guy who was super efficient, led the team in efficiency score, was Dylan Mitchell. He was just unlocked in this game. When UC moves the ball like they did on Saturday, Neil, Dylan Mitchell can really thrive. He can start finding those gaps in the defense. And he can start making his impact felt on the boards as well, with 13 rebounds, which tied a career high, I believe. He was massive on the rebounding front, as was Aziz Mandego, 6 rebounds. Don't want to let him go under discuss here. He just denied everything at the rim, had 2 blocks, 7 points, 3 of 4 from the field, affected a ton of shots in this game. He's going to have to continue to do that, especially against the nice slashing ability of freshman lead guard for Baylor, BJ Edgecombe. Aziz Bandego, when he's at his best, this defense is really, really hard to crack, and that was in full display on Saturday, as they also forced 10 TCU turnovers and got 10 points off of those turnovers. 1 point per turnover is exactly kind of the bar you want to set, and get even higher than that moving forward the rest of the way here. But I love what I saw from this team. It was in terms of a complete game, a complete showing. And I got to give a shout out to Wes Miller and his staff on this front. I've been critical of their ability to develop players through the first couple of years of his tenure, first 3 or 4 years of his tenure. Josh Reed is a clear development story that has worked out on the right side of things. A guy who was kind of the more overlooked part of Wes Miller's first class, hadn't really had those major opportunities just yet, but he is taking full advantage of them, taking the bull by the horn, so to speak. and making the most of his starts over the past couple of games and making the most of his increased minutes. Neil, when they needed a wing to step up out of this group after it got banged up over this Big 12 slate, Josh Reed has been that guy, and he's not only doing it offensively, shooting 100% from the floor and staying super efficient on low volume, but he has been a huge factor in guarding some of the best players perimeter-wise on the other team.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ, and that's a huge thing too, because obviously Cincinnati heading into the season, Josh Reed was probably going to be your 10th or 11th guy off the bench, and one of those guys who you could just plug in there and give you a defensive spark. But with how this season has gone for Cincinnati, especially with the injury to Dan Skillings, Simas Lukosius gets banged up, Connor Hickman gets banged up, Dan Skillings starting to find his way back a little bit. Josh Reed has been the spark the Bearcats have needed, and it's well-deserved because we see the hard work he puts in. And for those who kind of follow this program, Josh is a pretty quiet guy. He likes to come in, head down, work, and just play basketball, right? And on top of it, it's great to see the hard work really paying off for him, because in the season right now for Cincinnati, Russ, this team could have folded over at 2-8 in Big 12 play and said, okay, well, let's go a different route. Start to give up. NIL kind of is a different aspect in college basketball, but they chose to fight. And I think once that move came with Josh Reed stepping up, it sparked a whole new light for Wes Miller and this staff. And that's due to the success rate of the development of Josh Reed. He's coming in, he's playing a huge role for this team. And right now, Cincinnati finds themselves back in the mix of a bubble team if things go right here over the next 3 games.
Yeah, looking at where they stand right now in Bart Torvik, I think they're hovering right around an 18% chance to make the NCAA tournament as we sit here. Yeah, 18.1% when you look at the bracket matrix on in terms of all of the big projections this season. 87 big projectors out there now on the bracket matrix board, and Cincinnati, unfortunately, as of the update yesterday, so we're still waiting on the update on Monday. A lot of guys put out their brackets. A lot of projectors put out their brackets to start the week, so they might be on 3 or 4 or 5 as we get the update later on this afternoon. They aren't on any right now, so obviously still a ton of work to do. Just got to keep stacking wins, and you got to keep the lights on as well, Neil. Hopefully they could keep the lights on at Fifth Third Arena on Tuesday night, as that was the first in my sports coverage career where we had the press conference. The stadium power was off a couple hours before the game, and they had to scramble to get that going for the game. Fortunately, no lights went out and no injury ensuing situations happened in the middle of play with the power going out in the middle of the game. That didn't happen, but it did go out 45 minutes later with the final minutes of Wes Miller and Dylan Mitchell and Josh Reed talking to the media, and they kind of cut that one short. It made for a funny clip on social media, but hopefully they got all that figured out, got all the generators ready to roll, got all the power fuses all up to stuff, and they can get a clean game through media press conference session on Tuesday night. We will hopefully have all that. We will have all that ready for you, Neil and I both, from Cincinnati Bearcats on SI and the front office news.com. We'll get to our look at Baylor, a quad 1 matchup as we sit here today for Cincinnati right after this on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, looking at this Baylor matchup, UC enters the game ranked 44th in the net, 52nd on Ken Palm as of this recording, and Baylor is 30th in both, with Bart Torvik giving the Bearcats a 55% chance to win the game with a projected final score of 69-67. I think it's a similar game plan as they had against TCU. Just roll over that execution in terms of offense, try to continue building good chemistry, even if they're not able to get Simas Lukosius back on the floor, swing the ball well on offense, keep finding those cracks in the paint, and don't get stuck on that jump shot. Do not get stuck shooting those mid-range shots. It's infuriating watching, even as much as they still do it, in terms of how easily they can get to the rim and score at the rim compared to just settling for those jumpers in the middle of the floor. Neil, 70.2% allowed on close twos this season from the Baylor defense. They are missing their main rim protector, as we talked about. And I'll pull up his name again. It is always hard for me to say. Josh Ojuwana, 6'10" forward, has not played since February 8th, was a big factor in limiting Cincinnati's offense back in January. They're giving up 70.2% at the rim now and 89.3% on dunks. Cincinnati already gets about 43% of their points from dunks and close twos. I think they need to get about 55-60% of them in those aspects this coming game to have a comfortable chance of winning this outing, and I think they're going to be able to do it with how poorly Baylor defends the rim. To give you perspective, 70.2% is among the 5 worst defenses on defending close twos in the entire country among all of Division I.
Yeah, and on top of it, Russ, too, it's worth noting that since Josh Ojuwana went out with injury, Baylor is 1-3 in that play, with their only win coming versus West Virginia in overtime. They're coming off a horrific loss to Colorado on Saturday. They fell to Arizona. They fell to Houston. This team is mightily struggling without Josh Ojuwana there, and respectfully so, because of how well he has played this season. So overall, it is a huge loss for Baylor, because you look back at this first matchup, Russ. VJ Edgecombe went 7-13, 18 points. Norchad Omier, who's going to be a huge player to watch in this matchup, finished with 18 points, 10 rebounds. He's a double-double machine. But who was right there behind him? Josh Ojuwana, who had 10 points and 7 rebounds and really caused a lot of trouble for Cincinnati in that aspect, in a game where Cincinnati just got outplayed down in Waco. And simply was that. They got outplayed down there, out-physical. Everything that went wrong in Waco went wrong. But this is a completely different Baylor team. And when you have 2 talented bigs in the front court like Ojuwana and Norchad Omier, and then suddenly one of them goes down with the season-ending injury, it changes your whole lineup perspective. And they also have had guards Langston Love kind of been battling some injuries as well. So overall, this is going to be a different Baylor team than what we saw just about a month and a half ago down in Waco. But Russ, like you mentioned, attack the paint, attack the rim, get downhill and attack, right? We saw them do it Saturday. Let's keep that thing going. If they can get to the free throw line, attack the rim and get to the free throw line at the rate
right, and it's a great point, Neil. You're not getting to the free throw line shooting mid-range jump shots.
Yeah, if you can get downhill and attack and attack and attack, and I'm going to preach attack on this episode, because if they get guys like Norchad Omier into foul trouble, force Baylor.
Nothing else.
There's nothing else behind him. Force them to play small. And that's going to be the biggest thing. Get downhill attack and literally hunt contact. That's going to be the huge thing. Hunt contact in this matchup.
I think Omier is their only rotation player over 6'6" after they lost Ojuwana. So that's why it's been such a huge issue for Baylor down the stretch here, just with their at-rim defense, because they don't have any other size to match with Omier. He was a solid rim protector, but not really as adept as Ojuwana's ability on that end. Defensively, when we look at Cincinnati's defense going up against Baylor's offense, the 3-ball has been tough for Cincinnati to defend, Neil, throughout the majority of conference play, and they're going to have to defend it much better here. They're allowing 34.6% from deep this season. That's 12th among all Big 12 teams in conference play. That's what their number is, 34.6%. VJ Edgecombe has upped his 3-point accuracy heavily in conference play. The dynamic freshman averaging 14.7 points, 5.2 rebounds this season, but shooting 38.2% from deep. If they let him hit 5, 6, 7 threes in this game, it's going to be very, very difficult to win. They got to defend that perimeter very well. And then once again, just like TCU, Cincinnati is a horrible matchup for this Baylor offense, because they're averaging 20 free throw attempts in conference play. That's 6th most in the Big 12. And they are the 2nd best free throw shooting team by percentage, hitting nearly 80% of their shots at 79.1%. Neil, that's the biggest reason why I'm picking Cincinnati once again here. It's just there's going to be too few avenues for Baylor to find its way to 70-plus points. I think Cincinnati gets there. They keep Baylor to around 10, 12 free throw attempts total, and they get the job done 71-69. We'll see if I can get to 23-5 on my season prediction record. What do you got on the defensive side in the prediction?
Yeah, on the defensive side for Cincinnati, it's going to be interesting to see how does Aziz Bandego, Dylan Mitchell, and Arrington Page respond versus a guy like Norchad Omier. If they can find a way, those three can find a way to really lock in and keep Norchad or Mir off the glass, I think this is a game where Cincinnati could pull off a big upset and get this ship right back on track to an NCAA tournament bid. But it's got to come with them winning the glass for me. If they can win the defensive glass and the offensive glass, find ways to take Norchad or Mir out of the picture, you're going to do great things. Obviously, everybody knows VJ Edgecombe is very talented. He's a projected lottery pick for a reason. He's going to get his. Everybody kind of knows that. However, eliminate Baylor's bigs out of the picture here. And after what we saw on Saturday, Russ, I think this is a game where Cincinnati could come back home, keep the ball moving, and get a huge win versus a struggling Baylor team. But it's going to be interesting because Russ, I don't know if you knew this or not, this is Baylor's first trip to the Eastern Standard Time since members of the Big 12. So the time difference could play a factor into this one. So it's going to be interesting to see how does this Baylor team respond to going on the road to a different time zone where they have yet to travel to with the expansion of the Big 12.
Yeah, they just gave up 76 points in a loss to the worst team in the conference in Colorado. So a reeling Baylor team that has lost 4 of its past 6 going up against a Cincinnati team that has won 4 of its past 6. A couple of programs going in opposite directions right now. That'll do it on this Bearcat Blitz. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Eltman. We will talk to you all later in the week as we see if the Bearcats can keep their at-large bid hopes alive in terms of getting that done in the regular season. Well, that's the only that's the only way they're going to be able to do it is by winning out, basically. Almost assuredly have to win out because then you have to pursue an automatic bid in the NCAA tournament lead up at the Big 12 championships in a response. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Eltman. We'll be back later in the week to recap the Baylor game and get set for the daunting task that is traveling to play the Houston Cougars. He's Neil Meyer. I'm Russ Eltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz presented by Bet Online.
This is the second. 15 seconds left. Shot clock off. 4-point game. DeJulius puts up a 3. Yes!